Hi, loves. Today, I am so excited to bring to you an amazing guest, Winnie Chan Wang. She is a beautiful soul, and I am convinced that her and I were just separated at birth. There is so much about her work and my work and the transmutation of our pain that is so aligned and so beautiful. And I am so excited to be sitting with her right now. Winnie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm actually crying right now for those who are just listening and don't know, just because, when you feel this divine alignment, when everything is coming together and
Mm.
there's this sense of overwhelming joy and gratitude just to be here with all of you today. And, I had some very difficult challenges in my life. I wrote a book about this. My book is called Honoring Darkness. And, I started with my childhood trauma, and then I had a rape, and then I had a divorce, and
Mm.
then I had parental alienation.
Mm.
And I don't know if everyone in the audience know what parental alienation is. But parental alienation is that during the divorce process, when one parent says something bad about the other parent, and then, the trust is broken, causing that the daughter says, I don't want to have a relationship with
Mhm.
you. You are not my mother, and you
Mhm.
have no right to talk to me.
Mm.
Right. So for me, those were some very, very dark
Mm.
times in my
Mhm.
life. I remember spending Mother's Day like eating breakfast by myself.
Mm.
And I remember like another Mother's Day where neither of my daughter wanted to spend 60 seconds with me. So they wouldn't
Mm.
even eat in silence across from me on a table for 60 seconds.
And Winnie, this is the power of your message because to have moved from there to where you are today, in my opinion, relatively quickly, right? To have transformed that, the deepest pain I can imagine, to the power that you are bringing to us today, it's a miracle.
It's really funny because I love spirituality. I actually read the Bible every day. I absolutely
Mm.
love Jesus.
Mhm.
And I also love Kuan Yin. I love all kinds
Mm.
of Buddhist meditation. I love the Tao Te Ching. I practice the Tao. I practice yoga, all kinds of yoga philosophy. So I'm just a lover of spirituality.
Same girl, same.
Okay. So what I wanted to say was if you picture the Tao symbol, which has the black fish and the white fish,
Mhm.
and the black dot and the white dot, you will begin to notice something, which is within the black fish, there is a white dot.
Mm.
And what that means is no matter how dark it is, there is light
Mhm.
somewhere.
Mhm.
And that's why the full title of my book is called Embrace Shadow Work to Nourish and Grow Your Power.
Aha.
Because it is when you're navigating the dark times that you discover your source light.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's so funny because now I'm writing my second book. It's called Unlocking Light. So my first book is about all the shadow that
Uh-huh.
I faced after the divorce.
Mhm.
And then now I'm doing the whitefish part, right?
Uh-huh. That has the spot of dark in it.
Right.
Mhm.
So basically, and life is just that cycle,
It is.
we have this hero's journey when we go dark, and when we come back up, we serve humanity. And then there will be another challenge. And then
Mhm.
we could just get stronger and stronger. And the message is really to my beloved audience is a message of hope and resilience, knowing that, you know, there's this really deep source power that is in us.
Always with us. Always.
Exactly. And it is
Cannot be extinguished.
exactly that, it was really funny because my acupuncture mentor, one time I was really devastated after the divorce and having the parental alienation. And I'm crying. I'm like, "Ooh." And then he's like, Winnie, cut it.
I
He's like,
freaking love that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because as an acupuncturist, we insert needles into people, right? So he
Uh-huh.
just wanted to penetrate my
Be
bullshit.
still. Be still.
Yeah. So you know what he said? He said, Winnie, let me tell you something. I said, okay, what is it? Who you are cannot be broken,
Mm-hmm.
right? The word heartbroken
Mm-hmm.
is not actually possible
Uh-huh.
because, so in the Heart Sutra, which is a Buddhist text, it talks about who we really are cannot be born and cannot die,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's
Spiritual
this,
beings having a human experience.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So, my acupuncture mentor is like, cut your bullshit, okay? When you cannot be heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that
Mm-hmm.
that is, how do you say it? It's kind of like this. The sun is always there.
Mm-hmm.
You might not see it because it's
Mm-hmm.
covered by dark
Mm-hmm.
clouds, but the sun is
It doesn't
always
cease to
there.
be, right?
Yeah,
In EMDR therapy, when I'm working with clients around their psyche, right? It's the self. The self is eternal. It's unaffected by the traumas. It's untouched. It's our highest awareness, right? And we talk about finding the self in the pain because it's stable, it's sure, it's steady. Yeah.
exactly. And, the way I love EMDR and explain it to other people, a lot of my clients, they come to me because I specialize in removing trauma from the body because the trauma is stored in the physical organs like heart, lung, kidney, spleen, liver. So by using acupuncture, it's like hiring a plumber. I say, you hire me, you're like hiring a plumber. Okay.
To like unclog the shit. Yes.
Exactly, exactly. So my job is to diagnose which pipe is clogged,
Right.
which organ is clogged, and then I unclog you, right? So,
And our modalities work especially well together, right? Someone comes to me and unclogs a bunch of stuff from the mind, and then it can get hung up on its way out, right? In the spleen or the kidney or wherever.
exactly. So a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, can I really graduate from my trauma? And I take a moment and I laugh because it's like yes and no. It's like this. Can you undo a rape? If you went to war and you lost a leg, can you unloose a leg? So there's a part of the trauma where if you have a white sheet of paper and there's ink on it, there's always going to be ink on it, right? Like you can't say, okay, the rape didn't happen, or I didn't go to war, I didn't lose a leg, right? So there's a part of the trauma that is real and always going to be there. But events are actually neutral. As in, what you do with that ink on the paper,
your belief system about it. Yeah.
You can make it into the most beautiful art.
So what I hear people asking you when they're asking, can I graduate from my trauma, is really, can I live in an illusion of perfection? No, you can't.
What I call this in our book is we can't avoid the lemons in life, but we can make lemonade out of our life, right?
Yes.
And so, consider this, right? Is World War bad or good? I mean, I think most people will say wars are bad. However, before World War I, all countries, women stayed at home. And it was because every man that's able to pick up a weapon was drafted to fight in the war. And so the women entered the workforce. So think about all the generations under patriarchy where women could be domestically abused by their husband.
Liberation through loss.
And exactly. So even though, yes, World War was terrible, a lot of lives were lost, but it also created opportunity, which is women entered the workforce for the first time. And that created financial independence for women so they could start having divorces and leave unhappy marriages.
Preach. I relate to so much to liberation through loss. I think that's why I love the moment in time of divorce that I just am so inspired to work with, because liberation through loss, it is the truth. It's how I found my highest self. It's how I started the healing journey. I think we share that story.
Exactly. And that's why everybody needs to book and work with Coach Dawn. You know why? And they should also work with me and book me, because a lot of clients come to me and they said, Winnie, can you help me lose weight? I said, yeah, sure. Okay, but if you're going to eat 21 cheeseburger, there's nothing I can do for you. The best acupuncturist cannot overcome the fact that you eat 21 cheeseburger. Okay. So the body keeps the score. So you want to see an acupuncturist to help you move the physical stuck energy in your organs, in your shoulder, your hips, your knees, your ankles. But if you don't change your mind, then in 3 days,
you keep generating more.
Exactly. The pain is just going to come back, right? So everyone should work with a person like Coach Dawn so that they can have the mindset shifts, so that they stop generating the junk. And everybody should have an acupuncturist, so that the acupuncturist is like the plumber that helps
cleaning
you
it out and keeping
flush the
it clean.
toilet. Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
I love it. Winnie, tell us more about your journey through divorce and that mother-daughter relationship that you mentioned, because I know that. And also, how interesting is it, both of us, healers not fully integrated when we began healing work, right? We both have been functioning as healers, but not fully integrated. And then here's this story of transformation. It's so beautiful. I just know that your clients get so much more from you now that you've done this work.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So it's really funny because I became a Reiki healer in 2017. And in the beginning, I was just love and light. Okay. I was chanting mantras.
I relate.
And, that's not to say it's not good, because I was able to put love and light into the needles, which made the acupuncture more powerful. However, I was still really judgmental, and I was telling everybody what's wrong with them. And, to the extent that my daughter would call me out, she would say, you say one thing and do another, right? And at the time, it was so hard for me to believe. And one of the things my daughter kept saying to me would be, Mom, you don't ever listen to me, and I don't feel like I matter to you. I don't feel important. And she said that for years, and it was really hard for me to understand. But now I understand, right? Because I grew up with parents who were always right? My father, if my father and mother and I disagree on something, then my parents are always right and I'm always wrong as a child.
So relatable.
Exactly. So, and as a child, one of my core wounds is that I don't feel heard. I don't feel understood. I feel so alone. I feel so like I don't matter.
So of course we carry that forward as mothers.
Exactly. So it's so funny because here I am. I remember thinking, okay, if I ever become a mother, then I'm not going to do what my parents did to me, right? But it's so funny because it's hard. It's really hard to be so honest in your shadow.
Mm.
And it's not until I had a divorce when my ego was completely crushed, when I finally stopped what I call spiritual bypassing, which is pretending I'm better than other people because I chant mantras, I meditate, I practice
Because you
Reiki.
practice.
Yeah, exactly. So what brought me down to my knees was the fact that, okay, Winnie, you say you practice love and you practice forgiveness and you help all these clients, but look at your own relationship. You know, what does the data say, right? The data says that you
It's
don't
not
have,
cute. It's not cute.
no, it's not good. The report card doesn't look so great. So,
but I relate to what you're saying so much that there are these promises I made with myself that I was not going to get divorced and I was not going to raise my kid a certain way. And I was right. And then when we get confronted with hard data that says, I did the thing I said I wasn't going to do, it's like there's a reckoning there. And that, oh, must not be so. I am doing the thing.
exactly. So the moment my ex-husband said, I no longer want to do the work to be in a relationship with you. And I think 7 days later, I suddenly just had this light bulb moment when I realized every single thing I ever complained about him is in me, right? So I love pointing the finger and blaming him, like, you're an angry person. No, actually, I'm the angry person. You're judgmental. No, actually, I'm judgmental. You're selfish. No, actually, I'm selfish, you know? And so it was actually a very informative exercise after the divorce where I wrote down every single thing I cannot stand about my ex-husband. And then I simply changed the word he to I.
And you walk us through this exercise in the book, in your book.
Yes. And it was so powerful. It really brought me down to my knees because, of course, every relationship is a mirror, right? So my ex-husband is really my mirror and showing me how I'm angry, I'm selfish, I'm judgmental. And, you know, like, I feel like one of my core wounds is no matter what I do, I'm not good enough for him. Whatever he does is not good enough for me.
And
Yeah.
so within 7 days of you two parting ways, you came to that awareness.
Yes, I did this exercise of writing every single thing
Amazing.
I can't stand about him, and then, like, you know, cross the he.
And what was that moment
I.
like when you were sitting with that? What did it feel like to be in your body in that moment?
You know, it was really interesting because I was hiking and I was at a river. So I stood in the middle of the river and I just screamed and cried and yelled and just kind of put all of that, allow the flow of the river to move me. And, you know, so I actually wrote the letter standing on my iPhone.
Really?
while I was in the middle of the river. Yes.
Wow. Wow. And so that a moment like that, while it's deeply painful, there's so much shame in a moment like that that's moving, right? So much shame. However, I've always found the silver lining to that moment to be so much empowerment, because if it's me, I can do something about that.
Yeah, absolutely. But when it comes to shame, I gotta say, nothing beats parenting shame, because the way I look at this is I can have all this shame around the divorce. And let me tell you something. I am the first person to get a divorce in my generation, my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation. I come from a culture where you do not get a divorce.
And there are some cultural considerations, right? Yes, I get that.
So yeah, exactly. To this day, I remain
the only person,
the token person who has ever gotten a divorce. So let me tell you, the divorce shame is real. It was so
it's
bad.
legit for you. Yeah.
It was so bad that I couldn't even tell my parents I was getting a divorce.
That makes sense to me. That's how powerful, how physically palpable the shame was for you. Yeah.
So just a
they
funny
know now,
joke.
right?
Yeah. So what I did was I texted them, I'm getting a divorce with John.
Mm-hmm.
And then they called me for the next 10 days and I just couldn't pick up
answer.
the phone.
Yeah.
No,
that makes sense.
No, exactly. So I couldn't deliver the news. I could only text it. And then I could not pick up the phone because I didn't want to answer the question, what did he do? What did you do? What did you try? Like, I'm like, Mom, Dad, like, I cannot answer your questions. Like, I need to create this really safe container for me right now
to move through this.
Exactly. But I do want to talk about parental shame because to me, no matter how bad the divorce shame is, that's so yesterday. Because, you find a new girlfriend or boyfriend and it's a new relationship, right? But then, to me, boyfriend, girlfriend, it's kind of like a winter jacket. You take off this winter jacket, you get a new winter jacket. Hey, you don't have to look at the old jacket anymore. But your children,
in the big book of AA, they call that a geographical solution, right? It's like, oh, maybe it's the relationship's fault or the jacket's fault, right? But yeah.
But children is not something you can just write
swap
off.
out.
No, you cannot just take off the jacket and get a new jacket. You only
little truth tellers with their truth serum.
Exactly. The children, you don't get to be like, trade in a different set of children. You don't get to pretend you can just walk away with this relationship and start a new one. No, your children, it's like the report card of how you card. Yeah, exactly.
That's so good.
Right? So your relationship with your children, also to a large extent, whether your children are judgmental, whether they have compassion, whether they have anxiety, depression, addiction. Okay, not entirely our fault, but I like to say 20%. 20% is the parents' contribution. Yeah. So, of course, I think that, there's this phrase like, don't take things personally, right? Because, if our children is bullied at school, well, we don't get to control what happens at school, right? And then I also believe that children come with their own personalities and past life karma and all this kind of
ancestral stuff, DNA, genetically, spiritually. Yeah.
And for example, we don't get to control if there's COVID or no COVID, right? We don't get to control if we're in a lockdown or no lockdown. So when our children have anxiety, I tell my clients, you're 20% responsible. So know that you can do something, but even if you tried your absolute best, it doesn't mean that anxiety can go away, even if you are a rescuer and you put in everything you got, because 80% is beyond your control.
Their own journey. Yeah. I have learned, this has been one of my greatest learnings in the last year, is truly like law of attraction framework. The happier I am, the better I am at regulating my own emotional experiences, the more open my heart is. She mirrors that.
Exactly. There's actually science.
Yeah.
So the science is that the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until they're 25.
Mm-hmm.
So literally every time if you have children under the age of 25 and they're flipping out, they
Mm-hmm.
don't even have the hardware to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they actually rely on mirror neurons.
Aha. Uh-huh.
And so it's all about the parents. It's all
Gosh.
about the parents' nervous system.
Yeah.
So exactly. So if the parents is calm,
Uh-huh.
then their mirror neuron is going to pick up on our calmness, and
Calm.
they're not going to have anxiety and react. That's what I mean. The parent is 20%
That's
responsible. So
amazing. I can't believe I've never heard it that way before. So when we think about attachment style, it's not attachment style doesn't just come from purely attachment activating events. It's also just from being with your parents' attachment style.
So it's interesting about this is it's independent of whether the child has a good relationship with the parent or not. And so what I mean is this. There's a phrase that says, you are the 5 closest people you
Uh-huh.
breathe with.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is we're all spiritual beings.
Mm-hmm.
So that means it's kind of like, okay, if my daughter caught COVID, she
Mm-hmm.
comes home, I can very easily catch COVID from her.
Mm-hmm.
If my
Mm-hmm.
daughter is angry
Mm-hmm.
or have anxiety, I can
You
very
can catch
easily
that.
catch it
Uh-huh.
from her, right? Because things like anger, anxiety, fear, grief, these things are emotional viruses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas COVID, you can take a test and two lines means you're positive.
Mm-hmm.
We really should be aware of,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of
What
like,
what viral load we're shedding emotionally, whether it's on the upper end of the scale or the lower end of the scale.
right? So for example, if I'm coughing, I really should stay home and not
Yeah, cover.
give my germs to other people. So when I'm angry, I
Mm-hmm.
really should ground and meditate and come back to calmness before I have a conversation with my children,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because why would I want to give them my anger?
You put a quote in the beginning of your book that just like hit me upside the head this weekend, about when attachment trumps authenticity. That quote that spoke about, um, and you also put a quote in there about how the patriarchy has valued um, um, perfectionism and driving over groundedness, right? And those two things kind of came together in my mind this weekend, recognizing how when I am not prioritizing groundedness, I'm prioritizing perfection, how that's affected my daughter, right? That, wow, those are just such powerful thoughts. Then she divorces herself from her own authenticity, and she prioritizes the attachment. She wants to keep me happy. She wants to keep me pleased. This is why she cheated on her spelling test last quarter, right? Because she wanted to prioritize pleasing me versus the authenticity of not knowing the answers. And that 20% that I contributed that caused her to feel insecure in the attachment and then shoved down her little truth.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
got good news for you though.
Tell me.
Uh, she's 8, so you can still help her.
There's time.
There's time. One of my favorite things to say is a lot of our wiring, our subconscious is formed between 0 to 7.
Uh-huh.
So it's really funny because my spiritual awakening, the very first time happened when my kids were 7 and 9. So I'm like, oh crap, I missed the window. And I would
There,
work,
it's closer to be able to harness. It really is. Yeah.
and whenever I have clients come in and their children and they have like 2-year-old, 4-year-old, I said, lady, listen to me.
You celebrate.
You got to change before they hit 7, man, because if you change now, you don't mess up your kids. And, I love my clients because they comfort me. They're like, Winnie, it's better to find this out when your kids are 12 than when they're 22. And it's better to find out when they're 22 before that they're 32, right?
For
Basically,
sure.
it doesn't matter as a parent whether your kids are 2, 12, 22, or 32. The moment that you realize
It's a gift.
it's a gift, you
It's
have
a
an
gift.
opportunity to change yourself. And when you change yourself, you will notice a change in them, because
Immediately.
even if they don't like you or they like you, whatever the relationship is,
There's a softening.
they are breathing in your vibration, right? They are marinating, right? It's like, am I vibrating love, unconditional love? Am I vibrating compassion and forgiveness? Or am I vibrating fear?
I wonder what our listeners realized just now about what they're vibrating. And that is the motivation. That is the empowerment when I realize, right? I have so much power to shift me. I have so much power to positively influence the world around me. But then what our clients say next, right? Is, but how? But how? And I love in your book how you've built into it, how to face our shadows, how to face our parenting shame, how to face our wounds and our pain, and to do it in a way that is so freeing.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me, Winnie, shadow work, originally came from Carl Jung, and that's the realm of talk therapy. What business do you have as an acupuncturist? Why are you writing a book on shadow work? And I said, what you don't understand is 70% of illnesses come from anger, fear, guilt, shame,
100%.
all of these things, right? So, for example, I had a client and she had limited eyesight. She found me on Yelp and said, can acupuncture help me with improving my eyesight? And I said, well, I don't know how much acupuncture alone can do, but if you're willing to trust me, then let's give it a try. And I kid you not, in one session, her eyesight fully restored.
Wow.
And it's because in the traditional Chinese medicine, anger is trapped in the liver, and liver opens in the eyes. So basically, what I got to do with her is unpack what was the anger. So it turned out that she had
to give it a voice.
Yeah. So she had anger with her biological sister. They got into a fight, and her sister set boundaries with her. And she's like, who are you to set boundaries and decide to abandon me? There's all kinds of anger. And so I said, hey, listen, do you want to forgive your sister and then get your eyesight back? Or do you want to stay angry at your sister and then have deteriorated eyesight? And she said, I want to forgive my sister.
No brainer.
I said, good,
no brainer.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yes. Yes.
And so, and this is just one example. And so basically what I realized is I need to write a book so that people who don't get to work with me individually, or, if they don't take my group coaching program, at just $28, if you systematically do the exercise
through the pages
in every chapter,
you can heal your life.
You can heal so many things. Okay. Recover your hearing. I work with a client, he had pelvic floor dysfunction at 25, and he was actually, had, urine leakage problem. And, and it's like 2 sessions and it's done. And it really has to do with fear. And it's so powerful, this shadow work. I cannot tell you the number of like medical cases that get transformed.
Because of the mind and the body are intrinsically linked. You cannot separate them. Yes.
Exactly. And so I'm like, everybody listening out there, you got to get a talk therapist or a coach like Dawn, and you got to go see an acupuncturist.
Like
because,
Winnie.
Yeah.
Yes.
You need both. Okay.
Yeah.
So
containers to shift. Containers to shift. Yeah. And the beauty of folks like us who have been doing this work is we know where to poke, right? Like that's the thing. We know where to poke to release the thing.
So I happen to be a professor of acupuncture, and I happen to have 4 science degree, including 2 from MIT. And so
just those little pieces of paper.
Yeah. So when I did this, I really want to provide a systematic framework to shadow work. Because one of the things I realized is sometimes I have clients who've had anxiety for 20 years and they've had a talk therapist for 20 years, but they still haven't graduated. And
that's the old way. That's the old way. Yeah.
The answer, I think, is partially because the talk therapist cannot take you where you are not ready to go. Because our ego doesn't want that pain. It's hard for us to open that part and go in there and look inside the closet where the monster is hiding. And that's why I have a group healing program, right? Because imagine if you have 10 people together, one person is sharing their breakthrough, and then that can actually heal you because you start to relate to that person. So it's like
catching that vibe too, like how you talked about, right? Transmitting a virus, transmitting anger, but we also transmit positivity. We transmit hope. We transmit, right? Whatever we're vibrating at, we transmit. So first of all, it's powerful to not have to go in the scary room alone. When we go as a group, it just feels less scary. And then when we're in the scary room and somebody all of a sudden catches a vibration of hope or optimism or healing, that's contagious.
Exactly. So I think that if you've been, I personally love individual therapy because there's nothing quite like having somebody hold your hand. Hold space. Yeah. But then if you've never tried group, I really hope everybody try group healing because, you know, one of the things is in 2018, I attended this kind of group program for the first time. And the facilitator had us write down the top 5 things that we were ashamed about. And one of my things was abortion. And before that time, I never tell anybody. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my girlfriends. It was just a shame that I held inside. Yeah. And like, even if I went to a talk therapist, I don't think I would just voluntarily do this. But because I am a good student and the teacher
I relate to that.
The teacher says, write down your top 5 shame. I got to do it right, you know. And what was interesting was the teacher said, okay, when you read this out loud to the group, everybody must raise their hand if they also have the same thing. So the women shared that they cheated, they stole money, they did like heavy drugs, abortion, all kinds of things that we normally.
I know you, I get you, I am you. I am you.
Yeah. And what's interesting is I was the first woman to share the abortion, and there was actually 24 women, and 7 of the 24 actually raised their hand. And I cannot tell you, like, in that moment, I cried so hard because when I came forward with my shame and abortion, I also healed 6 other women in the room because I don't know if they were going to admit that they have abortion shame, but 6 other women
release themselves.
So that's what I mean. It's like, that's why I have this group program. And yeah, I really believe in the power of group quantum healing.
Yes. And also because words don't teach in the way that experience teaches. So we can learn about vulnerability and we can understand vulnerability and we can acknowledge certain things to ourselves. But then until we go and do vulnerability, embody vulnerability, it doesn't have the same releasing effects. And that, you shared so beautifully why, yes, one-on-one coaching or therapy is it's essential on a certain level, but you can't skip the group and get the full benefit. You just can't. So I love that. And we are going to absolutely link to all of your delicious offerings in the show notes today. So our listeners will be able to check all of that out.
Yeah, it's really funny because when I first picked the title of the book, Honoring Darkness, some people might be like, whoa, honoring darkness, that seems so scary. But honoring darkness doesn't mean we dwell in the darkness. It just means that we cannot transform if we hate where we are. I think Martin Luther King says, hate cannot drive out darkness. Only love can.
Only love can do that.
Right? So it's like whatever parenting mistake that I've done, this parenting shame and guilt that's so heavy, I spent years hating myself for the parenting mistakes that I made. And I'm like, look at the data. I messed up my daughters. I'm a bad mom. I don't know how many people listening to this can relate to. I feel like a bad
all of
parent.
us. We've all had stood in that moment. Yeah.
And what I realize is I cannot become the parent I want to be by hating who I've been. I can only get there by loving, accepting, and finding compassion that every step along the way, I did my absolute best. And that's what I mean by honoring darkness. It doesn't mean what I did was right. It doesn't mean I want to stay there. But what I mean is I get to love, accept, and find compassion so that I can become who I want to be.
Where you were in those moments. Yeah. Yes. And this is the nitty gritty. This is the whole thing right here. What we're talking about, right, is finding love and acceptance for ourselves in our darkest moments. And I just know that that's what our listeners want so badly. And I know that they have so many questions about that. And so I can't wait to hear what they are. I hope they reach out to you. I hope, loves, that you definitely ask for what you need. I know you've heard so many good things today about how to honor the darkness. And Winnie, thank you so much for sharing your heart, sharing your journey, sharing your brilliance with us. I am confident this will not be your last time on the pod, that this is the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Thank you so much. We should do some like Instagram live or something. Have fun.
I love that idea. Love that idea. Okay. Well, thank you again. Peace.
Thank you, everybody.
Dear Divorce Diary is a podcast by My Coach Dawn. You can find more at mycoachdawn.com.